We will lose the Iran war. As a retired patriot veteran of foreign wars, I take no pleasure in saying this. When America goes to war, as an American soldier, I want us to win. But as America's intelligence officer, I have committed to telling truth. No matter how hard or uncomfortable the truth is. And this is the ruthless truth. Even if Trump achieves regime change, we will lose. We won the revolution because Washington personally controlled intelligence. We won World War II because the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, was military, subservient to the military. Then the CIA was born, and we tied in Korea. Although we won every battle in Vietnam, we lost the war. Invasions like Panama and Venezuela are not wars. We lost Libya. We lost Syria. Even though we had regime change in Afghanistan and Ukraine, we lost in Afghanistan and have long been losing in Ukraine. Because these are fourth generation indigenous resistance wars, like our own revolution. It may take decades or even centuries, but homegrown resistance wars always win in the end. The invader tires and eventually departs. Iran-Persia is an ancient country, rich in national identity, with mountains full of fresh water, caves, and hides. Like Afghanistan or Russia, invaders are ultimately defeated by the terrain itself. To win, wars must be righteous, and no war contrived by Zionist HEGSETH, Rubio, WITKOFF, and Kushner is righteous. But the cabal, as in Kabbalists, don't care about us winning, because American Protestant Zionists are still non-Jews, and both Christians of any stripe and Muslims are ultimately their enemy. Rape, born, orphan, adopted, blessed bastard, indigenous initiated, martial arts mastered, PSYOPs and special forces served, decades of duty in DEA and DIA, intelligence inducted, sabotaged and slandered, corruption crucibled, deep state betrayed, Yeshua saved, whistleblower warrior, rejecting revenge, repurposed in redemption, as chaplain, leader, teacher, and truth teller, now America's intelligence officer, following God, leading my family, and rallying all patriots to rescue our republic by restoring a virtuous populace. Welcome. I'm Jeff Prather, and this is the Prather Point. Very important show today, so please like, share, and subscribe this on Rumble, X, and Facebook. And it was funny, I noted on the Rumble rant before we started that the closer we got to showtime, numbers started dropping off. And then as soon as I noted that, the numbers started climbing again. So the algorithm that is controlling me is very much aware of that. Yes, hi there to Lori Wire of StayBrewed.com coffee and Team America coffee as well. And Rockabilly Guitar. Good to see you guys all there. Remember to go to BeReady123.com, BeReady123.com, and get your Iridium 9555. The deep state's now talking about there'll be Iranian sleeper cells activated. Of course, I assess that none of them would be able to do anything without being allowed to be brought in by the CIA and then vetted by the FBI. But regardless, that means comms will be cut. Next, SATCOM, which is only for the military, sat phones are best. So you can use promo code Prather for 10% off at beready123.com to get your Iridium 9555 free for 24 months, or in MOSSAD for $89.95, which is still a good sat phone. It doesn't work quite as well. There's also lots of backpacks, generators, Faraday bags, lots of good stuff as well. Roca Holmes, a rare event for me to catch you live. Well, glad to have you, Roca. Also, I'm slowly recovering. One of the things I'm using to recover is the Curative Bray saline nasal spray, which is available in the jeffreyprather.com shop as well. Kills anthrax, kills RSV, really good stuff. So anyway, I just explained the headline breaking why the U.S.-Iran war loss should be no surprise. But I'm also going to be covering MOSSAD boss killed, the U.S. theocracy versus the Iranian theocracy. Iran issues U.S. surrender terms. U.S. bombs Iran school, 165 kids killed. And Trump blames HEGSETH, Kushner, and WITKOFF and Rubio. And then finally, Putin declares Iran support, which means a second U.S. proxy war. So lots going on. I'm going to dive into that now. And so the first, and I should have time for questions today, so please put them in the chat and I'll try to get to them. But multiple sources are now confirming that David Barnea, the head of MOSSAD, has been targeted and killed. This is a significant setback for Israel. And because MOSSAD is the intelligence organization that is responsible for so many assassinations and so much of the infiltration of the U.S. Congress, presidency, FBI, and CIA. So I've seen this from multiple sources. And if you don't see me putting out stuff that others are putting out, it's because there's a lot of propaganda on both sides going out there. So I'm trying to filter that before I put something out. But this looks to be verified at this point. The story that the UAE hit an Iranian desalination plant appears to be propaganda, false propaganda. So there's a lot of propaganda going on both sides. I'm trying to make sure I filter all of that out. There's other deaths of high-ranking Israeli officials. Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, Netanyahu's brother, is reportedly dead. Minister of Finance is Smotrich, shot by Hezbollah. So this means that ground teams are in Israel. And also, of course, Israel is getting struck quite a lot. It appears that Iran has the initiative in this war now. And initiative is very important. So there are also reports that Netanyahu has been killed. I cannot verify those, so I'm not going to put that out at this time. Reports indicate that Washington has quietly approached several intermediaries, including Russia, Oman, and Turkey, seeking a path towards a ceasefire, which the Iranians have rejected ceasefires because every time they do a ceasefire, either Trump or Israel attacks or assassinate or missiles somebody. So there's no point in a ceasefire from their point of view, especially since they are proactive and they hold the initiative in this war. But through these channels, the United States is attempting to open negotiations and contain a war whose consequences are becoming increasingly difficult to control. But Iran has countered by issuing terms for ending the war, that is, United States surrender terms. This is a sea change, and this could well spell the end of the American empire, which is already failing by my assessment in the Middle East. So that's very, very significant to understand. In response, Iran has outlined a series of conditions that would form the basis for ending the war. The agreement must be formally written and approved by the U.S. Congress, ensuring that no future American president can unilaterally withdraw from it, as has happened previously. Of course, Congress did not declare war. We haven't declared war since World War II. 2, a binding and permanent U.S. commitment never to launch a military attack against Iran directly or through proxies. That's very significant. The complete withdrawal of U.S. military forces and bases from West Asia, ending the American military footprint across the region. That is, ending American hegemony, the American empire in the Middle East. That is a long-term strategic goal of Iran. And we'll talk more about that, of how they are successfully prosecuting that goal. And there are lots of reports, although I haven't verified them, that the U.S. is evacuating troops from its bases. The full and immediate release of all Iranian funds and financial assets frozen abroad. The complete removal of all economic sanctions imposed on Iran, along with guarantees that they will not be reimposed on the future. Israel must withdraw its forces from Lebanese territory, and they've been there for several years. So these are big asks. A clear and enforceable commitment from Israel to respect any ceasefire and end all violations against Lebanon. If Washington accepts these terms, the war could come to an immediate halt, and a new balance of power may begin to take shape across the West. If they are rejected, the conflict will not simply continue, it will deepen. What began as a regional confrontation could evolve into a prolonged war of attrition, capable of draining American power, eroding its credibility, because all of the Middle Eastern American bases have been hit, and so have those countries. So the myth that America can protect those countries has already been shattered. So this could place immense political pressure on the presidency of Trump. At that point, the war would no longer be just a battlefield struggle in the Middle East, but a strategic fire threatening to consume the authority and prestige of the American empire itself. So that is very, very significant, and I hope you understand that. Looks like Bibi has bit off more than he can chew, says Earl Jackson. Sorry. Not really, because as I said in my opening, all Goyim, all non-Jews, even if they are Protestant evangelical Christians and Muslims, are enemies. And so the Zionists in the Netanyahu and Mossad government are very happy to see both forces weaken each other. They still win. Also, and I have waited on this story for quite some time because I was unsure about it, but U.S. investigation points to the U.S. responsibility in Iran for a school strike last Saturday. U.S. military investigators believe it is likely that U.S. forces were responsible for an apparent strike on Iranian's girls' school that killed scores of children. Now, here's part of the propaganda of the story. They say scores. It's 165 schoolgirls that were killed. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on Wednesday acknowledged the U.S. military was investigating the incident. Officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity did not rule out the possibility that new evidence could emerge that absolves the U.S. Again, that's just more propaganda. The girls' school in Minab in southern Iran was hit on Saturday during the first day of U.S. and Israeli attacks on the country. Iran's ambassador to the UN in Geneva, al-Bahraini, said the strike killed 150 students. Again, my number is 165. According to the archived copies of the school's website, the school is adjacent to a compound operated by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The military force that reports to the Iran senior leader. So initially, it doesn't look like it was purposefully struck. It was collateral damage, but it was struck twice. The Pentagon referred questions to the U.S. military's chain of command. Captain Timothy Hawkins said it would be inappropriate to comment on the incident is under investigation. The White House did not directly comment on the investigation, referring people back to the Department of War. So that's the circular ice cream cone happening. Asked about the incident during a news briefing on Wednesday, HEGSETH said, "We're investigating. Of course, we would never target citizens." And U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the United States would not deliberately target a school. And I have to say, I believe HEGSETH and Rubio on this, that the IRGC compound was adjacent is evidence of this, even though it was struck twice. Trump, of course, said that Iran used a Tomahawk missile on the school itself, which, of course, is absurd. Trump is being led by his constellation of Zionist staff, and so is saying nonsensical things and is fairly desperate at this point. But taken together, the satellite imagery, available videos suggested the school and IRGC compound were hit by multiple simultaneous or near simultaneous strikes with explosive munitions, most likely air-delivered types, which is most likely Tomahawk missiles. The onus is on the forces that carried out the attack to investigate it. UN Human Rights Office spokesman Ravin Shamdasani told a briefing in Geneva. Images of the girls' funeral on Tuesday were shown on Iranian state television. Their small coffins were draped with Iranian flags and passed from a truck across a large crowd towards the gravesite. So let's just pause there for a second and try to empathize with the Iranian people. That the U.S., whether it was purposeful or not, twice tomahawked a U.S. girls' school. And by the way, they go to school Thursday through Saturday in Iran. So that's why they were in school. What do you think that does to the Iranian people? Do you think that makes them want to surrender? Or do you think that steals their resolve? And of course, I've always said very clearly that accepting nuclear bombing, all bombing steals resolve and does not lessen resolve. And this is the mistake all the genius generals always make. Deliberately attacking a school or hospital would be a war crime. So I don't think this is a war crime. I think this is collateral damage. But if this is confirmed, and I'm confirming it at this time, this is one of the worst cases of civilian casualties in decades of U.S. conflicts in the Middle East. This, of course, is the easy war from the air that I have an intro about, that I've talked about, that you think precision air-guided missiles are. They are not. So I delayed reporting some intelligence such as this because of the extreme amount of propaganda put out on both sides, but it is now certain the U.S. killed 165 schoolgirls by striking the school twice. The Christic response would be to confess, repent, and ask forgiveness. But HEGSETH and company are not real Christians. And again, that fact, and I waited a week to report that, is going to steal Iranian resolve, not lessen it. And those little girls are going to be martyrs in this war from the Iranian point of view. Probably IRGC kids that were blown up meant to inflame decision making. Not sure what that means, Earl Jackson. Ropo, strange feeling for me. I'm rooting for the good guy, but I'm confused, not confident as to who that is. Well, Iran has committed many acts of terrorism. This isn't a movie where you just one side's the good guys and one guy's the bad guys, but we are the aggressors in this war. And as I've said in my sermons and Substacks, this is not a righteous war. So, and we started this war, the Israelis started it, and then we are following the Israelis into it. The good guys are not the, Rocha says the good guys are not the terrorist states of Israel and the USA. And yes, you can make a rational argument if you step outside the American perspective and you are able to empathize and take on a point of view of Middle Easterners. Certainly, Israel is the leading terrorist nation of the world, along with America as well, always targeting. If Christian Zionists only knew, they're also targeted for elimination. That's very true, Rocha. They don't even know correct Bible. It's very hard arguing with them. The other day, somebody on X was saying there's only one Bible. Obviously, that person doesn't know much about the Bible. Protestant Bible has 66 books. Catholic Bible has 73. The Ethiopian Bible, one of the oldest in the world, has, I think, 117 more. There is suspicion that Trump is lying and hiding American soldiers, sailors dead. Yes, I am aware of that. I am not reporting on that. I have been in contact. There's also stories that Delta Force went in and they were captured. I have called BS on that completely. I've been in contact with a former Delta Force member just today. But without air superiority, sending in a commando ground force is nonsensical. And the numbers just don't add up, and the photographs don't add up. It's not widely known, but I talked about this maybe on X. Tier 1 units can decline missions. For example, the ill-fated Tucker Gar mission, where Slabinski stole John Chapman's valor, was declined by another SEAL Team 6 team initially. Now, so that there's a special missions unit captured in big numbers, I think is total BS propaganda put out by the Iranians. That there are additional soldiers and sailors killed in action is what Tonotox is asking about here. That could be. There are allegations that there are attributing deaths, that they're moving wounded out of the Middle East and then having them say that they passed someplace else. But I haven't seen a lot of evidence of that. I've only seen one that was supposedly a major, but it looked like he was a police officer. So again, I cannot verify any of that. If the numbers are large, I can tell you it would be very, very difficult to hide large numbers, just because of the fact of family members and notifications. If it's a small special forces team, which again I've said hasn't happened for the reasons I've already talked about, no, those deaths would be training accident. I mean, when I was in special forces back on the Nicaraguan border, if I had been killed, they would have said it was a training accident. That's very, very standard. Why were children in school? Wasn't a bombing campaign imminent? I don't know why they were in school at that time. Israel has often accused Iran of placing military units near schools and hospitals. That could be the case. Happy to have your questions today as I have time for them. So Trump is increasingly desperate and recently said that he went to war when he did, which again, Israel started the war, we followed them, based upon what Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner told me. I thought Iran was going to attack us. And he also mentions Rubio and HEGSETH as well. And he's also getting, I've seen reports where he's getting poll numbers that say 90% of America is supporting this war, which of course is not true at all. So again, with these major figures, their Constellation staff controls the information flow to them. And of course, from Susan Weiss to HEGSETH to Kushner, was a big Chabad Lubavitch supporter and asset for Israel. And of course, I've said myself that Trump is America's first Jewish president. The information flow is very controlled, but ultimately he's responsible for it. He should be able to break out of that. And leaders can do that. Good leaders have always done that. Halsey did that in the Pacific by getting on the ground, and he'd show up on an island, and the commander would say, "Hey, you want me to give you a tour?" He goes, "Nope, give me a Jeep. I'm just going to go around and look," which of course no commander wants because that's uncontrolled. But he'd go right up to the front to really see what was going on. If you want to see a great rendition of that, watch Gallant Hours with James Cagney. Gallant Hours with James Cagney. What percentage of America does support the war? I believe it's someplace around 15 to 20 to 30%. But you can ask, people around you. So another important announcement that has just come out is Putin pledges unwavering support to Iran's new supreme leader, which is Mojtaba Khamenei. So what does this mean? This is very significant because this means Russia, a major world power, arguably the strongest world power right now with resources and morally against Satanism and transgenderism, with plenty of oil, gold, gas, and precious metals, is now in a second proxy war with the United States. And of course, if we look at the Ukraine war, which was a CIA engineered regime change with a tranny Zelensky, then that war has been lost from the beginning, Ukraine was losing, they are losing, and they will lose, as I've said over and over. And that also parallels, to some degree, Iran as well. Not because Ukraine is a fourth-generation conflict. Ukraine versus Russia is a third-generation direct war conflict. The cabal, as in Kabbalists, wanted Ukraine to be the first digital state. So they wanted a fifth-generation propaganda war, information war, or maybe even sixth generation with swarm bots and injectables. But what they got was a third generation direct conflict war. And bullets always defeat propaganda. So the parallel between Ukraine and Iran is not direct. One is a third generation versus fifth generation. The other is a fourth generation conflict. But you give me your opinions here. Just tell me how many of you support the Iranian war. I, of course, do not. But Russian President Putin has formally extended his unwavering support to Iran's newly appointed Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei, signaling a deepening of the Moscow-Tehran alliance. This was on Monday, just hours after the Iranian Assembly of Experts officially named Mojtaba 56 to succeed his deceased father, who the Israelis killed. And he said, at the time when Iran is confronting armed aggression, your tenure in this high position will undoubtedly require great courage and dedication. For my part, I would like to confirm our unwavering support for Tehran and solidifying solidarity with our Iranian friends. Russia has been and will remain a reliable partner with the Islamic Republic. So according to Iranian state television, Mojtaba was referred to as Janabaz, which transferred to injured war veteran or wounded by the enemy. So I believe he has been crippled by strikes. So again, step outside your American bias and try and empathize with the Iranians from their point of view. So this is what Special Forces does. This is what intelligence officers try and do, is to see things from the enemy's point of view. So if the other leader was his father, was assassinated by Israel, and he has been wounded in attacks either by the United States and Israel, then is that going to reduce support for him and sympathy in Iran, or build support? And of course, the answer is it's going to build support. And when a major superpower aligns with Iran, which Russia has just done, and again, Russia is anti-Satanist, as is Iran. Remember, they were burning statues of Baal, where the American government is all about Baal and Moloch and sacrificing children and selling children and covering up for the rape and kidnapping, torture and murder of children. Then is this going to build Iranian resiliency or lessen it? And of course, the truth is it is going to continue to build it, because the world's hyperpower, the United States, is the enemy of Iran, the sworn enemy of Iran. And Russia, the second great superpower, is aligning with it. So it's very important to understand all of that. Putin also called Trump on Monday. And the conversation was reported as frank and businesslike, with Putin proposing ideas for political and diplomatic settlement. But of course, the Iranians are not interested at this point because they've been burned too many times. The Russian leader also used the occasion to warn that the destabilization of the Middle East would inevitably jeopardize global energy security, which of course is very true. Oil prices surging past $115 a barrel following strikes on Iranian refineries. Putin's message served as a reminder of Russia's role as a primary energy supplier to reliable partners in Asia, China as well, and Eastern Europe. So that's the Iranians are fighting a fourth generation resistance war, a war of attrition. The U.S. is running out of high-end missiles. The Iranians don't seem to be, although it's difficult to see through all the propaganda. I'm looking at that all the time. But again, everything I see indicates that the U.S. will lose this war and that the Iranians hold the initiative. Ropo, I support righteous acts. I believe the war is unjust. I'm ashamed of my country's decisions. Well, I agree with you. Rosha, Holmes, with such low support, if they try to start a draft, they're going to have real problems and probably even less support. Yes, plus this is an election year as well. So the U.S. media, which is Zionist controlled because it's deep state controlled, the deep state is controlled by the Kabbalists, by the global cabal, mainly Israel, is finally admitting outright failure of U.S.-Israel military aggression on Iran. The Air Force, the U.S. Air Force, has lost at least a half a dozen aircraft, although some higher estimates already put it at 15 plus in this war. And promises by the Pentagon that it would establish air superiority within 24 hours still have not happened. I've made a real point of this, that we haven't even achieved air superiority, which normally U.S. air dominance around the world has been unquestioned. But we have not achieved that in this war. There have been more losses over Kuwait, with another claim that an F-A-18 shot down an F-15. Other sources report there was actually an F-18 that was shot down. The idea that the U.S. military achieved total air dominance over Iran and sanitized the threat of ground-based air defenses to a degree that their forces have relatively free reign is false. So the U.S. Air Force has failed to establish air dominance over Iran. This effectively confirms my own analysis that the U.S. already ran out of exorbitantly expensive standoff munitions that now needs to get into a knife fight with an opponent that has a massively and highly complex network of air defenses because they are all underground. And we simply can't find them all. Give me some of that. 3 F-15E Eagles lost by friendly fire alone. Yes, if it is friendly fire. Those are the reports. Although smaller and less capable than the surface-to-air missiles network the Kiev regime inherited from former Soviet Ukraine, Iranian air defenses are among the most advanced in the Middle East. And they've been preparing for this war for 40 years. They knew this was coming. This gives the Iranian military another layer of capabilities that can provide a significant edge over the arrogant United States Air Force. Moving to direct strikes allows for a significant increase in the total volume of targets hit, as well as offering a broader array of effects to be brought to bear on those targets. And that bunker buster munitions are typically not available in any standoff capability. However, while claims that this transition to direct attacks has now begun, we're yet to see the Air Force establish actual air dominance that would allow it to launch a devastating mass bombing that would bring Tehran to its knees. On the contrary, the Pentagon is increasingly frustrated by its bad performance against military targets. The U.S. Air Force has wasted at least $5 billion of exorbitantly expensive precision-guided munitions to scrape paint off fake targets. And if you're not familiar with that is, the Iranians ingeniously painted a lot of helicopters on the ground, and the overhead satellite image identified them as helicopters, and then they were hit. And after they were hit, the paint images were still there. So you cannot beat that for economics, is painting a helicopter on the ground and then using a high-end munition to strike it once or twice. That is ingenious, and you cannot beat those economics. So another example of the ingenuity and ingeniousness of good resistance war fighting. At one point, Washington, D.C. threatened a massive land invasion, but after realizing it doesn't have the capacity for such a long-scale grand operation, the idea was dropped. And of course, we're in a midterm election year as well. So the administration needs every win it can get. So again, this is why I say no big land invasion and not even a special forces team without air dominance. Wouldn't do that. Looking here on X, see what Earl Jackson's saying, referring me to something here. John Bolton, the Walrus, was on with Katie Collins saying that he is worried that Trump would make a deal with Putin over Iran, with Russia agreeing to cease giving intelligence to Iran in exchange that the U.S. would cease giving Ukraine intelligence. Well, that isn't going to happen because Trump does not control the CIA, just like he doesn't control the FBI. People would say Biden's FBI and Biden's CIA and Trump's CIA and Trump's FBI. Those are not true. These are Praetorian Guard institutions that are independent because they're in the intelligence communities. They are the puppet masters running the show. They don't work for anybody except for themselves. And again, the deep state global Kabbalists are not trying to win wars. They're just trying to keep them going on so that they wear down their enemies and they profit from them. And that's the clear pattern that you always see with deep state and global cabal wars. I wonder if they were actually shut down by Israel or Iran. That's a good question. Ton of talks like Patton did on D-Day. Yes, Patton on D-Day. Patton was in charge of a whole army of balloon tanks and airplanes and a signals unit broadcasting fake messages. And it was a massive deception, a massive psyop, and it worked excellently. So that is right as well. Ropo, USA is not an ancient civilization. Do you think we can overcome all of this evil? We deserve to be judged harshly. So much perversion here. We export it also through Hollywood. Yes, we do. Israel is actually more corrupt. There's actually no child pedophilia laws in Israel. And of course, we see lots of pedophiles going to Israel. We saw their new cyber guy. Incest is a major crime in Israel. But we are the world center headquarters for pedophilia and drug use. But scripturally, in Revelation, it says the lady is carried off on the wings of eagle to the wilderness. So I believe that is the lady is the church. The church is the inheritors of Abraham, which are the true followers of Christ, as I've talked about many times. And being carried off on the wings of eagles is the American government. Going to the wilderness is as the fallen American Republic fails as an empire, returns more to a wilderness. So that's how I read that anyway. And so I think a lot of people do because, everybody that I know that has any sense is out in the country. So I'm not saying anything new here. I'm talking about what I've been talking about for a long time and confirming much of it as well. So, but just like you keep hearing, well, I don't think you're hearing it anymore, but you were hearing it, that Russia is on its knees, Ukraine is winning. I don't think anybody believes any of that anymore. So the same thing is with the Iran war, lots of propaganda. But from my analysis as a military intelligence officer, telling you the truth, because the government's not going to, Iran is prosecuting this war and has the initiative. So what's prosecuting mean? It is advancing this war. So the U.S. military bases that have been targeted by Iran in the Middle East since February 2026 include multiple strategic installations. There's Al-Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East, serving as CENTCOM's regional hub. And CENTCOM is the main unit prosecuting this war. It was struck by ballistic missiles with satellite imagery confirming damage to structures and the $1.1 billion AN/FPS 132 early warning radar system. With that down, that means they can be struck at will. And I've also seen a lot of reports of U.S. personnel leaving, but I can't verify those at this time. Al Dhafra Air Base in the United Arab Emirates hosts around 5,000 U.S. military personnel. Iranian strikes caused visible damage to buildings and infrastructure. So you don't hear about it, but we can see it. Ali Al Salem Air Base, Kuwait, also known as the Rock. This place saw multiple strikes with collapsed rooftops and damaged facilities near communications infrastructure. Camp Burin, Kuwait, targeted by drones with video evidence showing explosions within the base perimeter. Ain al-Assad Air Base, Iraq, located in western Iraq. Smoke and explosions were reported following missile strikes. And of course, there are Iraqi groups attacking the embassy, our U.S. embassy, in Iraq as well. Erbil Air Base, Iraq, repeatedly targeted satellite images showing 4 structures damaged or destroyed with fires burning for days. That means they couldn't get them under control. There are extensive military fire departments, by the way. NSA Bahrain, headquarters of the U.S. Fifth Fleet, Iranian drones struck the base, destroying 2 ANGSC 528 SATCOM terminals and other buildings. So again, taking the comms, blinding them. Mufwat al-Sati Air Base, Jordan, hit by multiple Iranian missiles. Jordanian air defense intercepted some. Prince Sultan Air Base, Saudi Arabia, targeted with missiles and drones. Satellite imagery showed a destroyed structure near a radome. Jebel Ali Port in the United Arab Emirates, a key U.S. Navy port of call. Smoke was seen rising from a U.S. recreational zone after a strike. Camp Arajan, Kuwait. Radomes were damaged and 6 U.S. service members were killed when a drone struck a tactical operations center. Striking attack shows good intelligence. Of course, that's likely coming from Russia. Iran has also targeted U.S. diplomatic facilities, including the embassies in Saudi, in Riyadh, Kuwait City, and the consulate in Dubai. The total damage to U.S. military equipment is estimated at nearly $2 billion. So Iran clearly has the initiative here. Now, there have been reports that Iran has struck the U.S. as far away as Turkey, and I cannot verify those at this time. There is no confirmed report that a U.S. base in Turkey was hit by Iran. However, Iranian ballistic missiles were fired toward Turkey, specifically targeting Incirlik Air Base, a key U.S. and NATO facility in southern Turkey. Incirlik Air Base confirmed that Iranian missile launched on March 4th was aimed at Incirlik Air Base, but was intercepted by a U.S. Navy ship in the Mediterranean. And that makes sense because it's so far away. Second missile incident on March 9th. Second Iranian ballistic missile entered Turkish airspace and was shot down by NATO defenses. Debris fell in the Gaziantep region, but no casualties were reported. The U.S. Embassy responded by ordering non-emergency personnel to leave Adana and urging U.S. citizens to depart southeast Turkey due to security risks. Ankara, which is Turkey, has not invoked NATO's Article 5, which would trigger a collective military response. Iran does not want that. Despite targeting U.S. bases in Gulf states, Iran has avoided striking U.S. installations in Turkey, likely due to the high risk of drawing NATO into a direct conflict and facing a strong Turkish military response. The Iranian officials have claimed their strikes are directly solely at U.S. interests, not at Turkey itself. So that doesn't mean they can't strike that far away, is they don't want to bring NATO into it. But again, this shows that Iran has the initiative and Iran is the one prosecuting this war. All government becomes so corrupt, so the solution is no government. Well, that's anarchy. That doesn't work very well because there's no police, there's no nothing. That goes south very, very quickly because it's who's got the guns. So that is a naive position there, Rocha Holmes. Any good war news links you recommend? I look at a lot of links to put my shows together. I've contacted several experts asking them to come on the show. Haven't heard any back. And I guess McGregor is good. And there's another colonel, but I can't think of his name right now. You have to look at a variety of sources. And of course, YouTube is highly censored. X less so, but still very censored. But I can't think of other than McGregor right now, who has been on the show, and I've asked him to come on. But a lot of these guys are busy right now putting out their own stuff as well. Turning to if you are able to look at my Patreon, which you can join at patreon.com/Jeffrey Prather. At the $5 a month level, you get all the created news stories I'm talking about. You can literally follow the show via the stories posted that day. But at the $15 level, you get special resources. One of those right now is President Trump's cyber strategy for America and the analysis thereof. So that's the document that just came out, President Trump's cyber strategy for America. It represents the iteration of the ongoing effort to consolidate federal control over the digital landscape in the guise of national security. This strategy prioritizes a unified defense of cyber assets, which in practice means increasing the Department of Homeland Security and CISA, which is I can't think of CISA right now. What is it? Authority over private sector networks. And of course, this goes into the oligarchs that have infiltrated the Trump administration. It's important to note the continuity of the special relationship regarding technical intelligence. The strategy emphasizes deep integration with the Five Eyes partners, notably fails to address the disproportionate influence of foreign-linked intelligence contractors within the domestic cybersecurity apparatus. CISA is a cyber infrastructure security agency, heavily infiltrated, heavily and long infiltrated. In the context of multi-front operational planning, this document signals the closing of the eighth front by tightening the noose around digital communications and data movement. The regime is ensuring that any attempt to organize, build parallel institutions, which is what X, Candace, Tucker, me is supposed to be, or disseminate information outside the established channels becomes a technical impossibility. The strategy's focus on resilience is in reality a focus on survivability of the regime's control grid, not the security of the American people's rights. This document is not a roadmap for national strength. It is a blueprint for the managed decline of American liberty. It confirms that the current administration continues to operate within the established framework of globalist control, utilizing the threat of cyber warfare to accelerate the consolidation of power. The strategy does nothing to address the actual threats to our nation, such as the demographic displacement or the erosion of our constitutional foundations. Instead, it reinforces the technical infrastructure required to silence those who see these realities and choose to speak out against them. So there's a summary of the new plan of the Trump's cybersecurity strategy. The church has lost the plot and is now too concerned about the building of the third temple. Well, if you're talking about American Christian Protestant evangelics, yes, that is true. If you're talking about Catholics, no. They don't buy that. I think if you look at some Baptists, they don't buy that either. But if you're talking about the church in general, that goes back to when I was talking about the U.S. theocracy. Well, I never really talked about it. I skipped over it. The U.S. theocracy versus the Iranian theocracy. So we all know and acknowledge the Iranian theocracy has been in place for a long time, but the U.S. theocracy is this government is dominated by American Christian Protestant evangelicals, which believe in the third temple, which of course there's no need for the third temple. Yeshua told us we are the temple. And of course, they falsely believe that Israel is special and that the Jews are still special, even though that's not what Yeshua said. Yeshua said, of course, I keep saying this over and over, that when you kill the son, you lose the vineyard. It passes to somebody else. Paul said, there is no Gentile or Jew in Christ, but these American Christian Zionists are not Christians. They're not Christ followers. They are Zionists who are following a heretical and bastardized Christic religion, which is really a bastardized form of Judaism, which again in itself is false, because when the temple was destroyed, they could no longer really practice their traditional religion, which is exactly what Yeshua predicted. The Calvary Chapel in my small town flies the Israeli flag underneath the American flag. Well, at least it's underneath. I just checked McGregor on X. Yeah, McGregor is a good source there that you can look at as well. So the Israeli army is taking more terrain for the Greater Israel Project and has just ordered the villages in a very large region along the border to evacuate their villages. The priests of major Christian villages in this region, which is Klalia, Marjayun, Ramak, Debel, Kaukaba, Alma El Sharab, and Ain Ebel, have refused to leave. They rang bells to declare their refusal. Yesterday, Father Marian Ghaffari, the priest of Alma El Shaib, was targeted. A shepherd who was working the fields, he died instantly. Today, the parish priest of Klalia, Father Pierre Al-Rai, was targeted and just became a victim. These are becoming the martyrs of the Church of Lebanon. In these villages, there is nothing that could threaten Israel's security. These are Christians on this land for 2,000 years. So you got to remember, Christianity was in this region long before Israelis. So they're asking for prayers for these priests of these Christian villages of South Lebanon as well. And switching subjects a little bit, a former D.C. police officer was indicted by an Alexandria grand jury for multiple rapes and sexual assaults around the Capitol. Timothy Valentin is suspected in several sexual assault cases in Alexandria, Montgomery County, and Prince George's County. He was previously an officer with D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. Investigators believe that Valentin would meet women on dating apps, meet up with them in person for dates, get them alcoholic drinks, or potentially slip something into their drinks and later sexually assault them. Roofies. Court documents say that in one case, a surveillance video shows Valentin taking out a sandwich bag filled with an unknown white substance, reaching across the table for his date's drink, and stirring some of the substance into it, all the while when the woman wasn't watching. So this is more evidence, facts-based truth, and missile in court, that the criminals on January 6th were the police, which means the police were working for a criminal regime, which we all know, but that begs the question, why hasn't there been any prosecutions? And that goes squarely back to Trump, because he could have gotten rid of Bondi at any point. He could have gotten rid of Patel at any point, and he could have demanded prosecutions, but he has not. And again, that's because the deep state Praetorian Guard puppet masters don't work for either party, which is a uniparty anyway. They work for themselves. So before I wrap up, any questions there? So thank you for standing by me, especially having patience with my cough. Oh, sweet Susie, I don't believe the bombing of girls was accidental. They bombed, waited for the military parents to go in and try to save them, and bombed again. It was strategic to bring military members together. Well, that's possible. I don't believe that myself. Mostly you're going to get first responders, not military personnel there, but it is a possibility. And certainly our government has committed democide on many occasions. But again, the killing of more children is a great sin on us and a stain on us trying to rebuild a virtuous populace. And it should be confessed, repented, and asked for forgiveness. But no one in the government has confessed, repented, or asked for forgiveness from running children under the Pedo Joe administration. Rocha Holmes, love the viewer interaction. Well, I don't have a huge agenda today, so I have time for that. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'll pause a second here in case you guys have any last minute questions before I wrap up. I hope you liked the new intro today and explained why I say we will lose the Iran war. So again, please support my sponsors. You can go to staybrewed.com or teamamericacoffee.com. Get 20% off there as well. And you can also go to Locals and subscribe there at $9 a month or $9 a year. There's no need to do both Locals and Patreon, though. Just do one or the other. John Kirikow on Matt Guy's podcast admits Praetorian Guard control. Podcast interrupted when asked who are the current guards. Yes, John Kirikow is a CIA whistleblower who went to prison for exposing Afghanistan crimes. And that shows the control that the deep state has over the media there. And again, that's one reason why I remain throttled. And I was saying at the beginning of the show, the closer I got to going live, the number started going down. And then when I wrote something about that, the number started going back up. Anyway, I want to thank you for your patience with my cough. My wonderful wife's taking great care of me. I am slowly getting better and working at it hard. But remember, the conspiracy continues even as it collapses. Chemistry can't DNA code, but code clearly indicates a coder. Not one Australopithecine is transitional, so ape evolution is over. But not scientism's superstitions concreted from kinder to college. Science ciphers cell law, but has never created a single cell, ever. But natural laws mandate a lawgiver. A creature is part of a creation, and a creation bespeaks a creator. Anyone can analyze a cake's ingredients, but only the maker can tell why. CRISPR only cuts. It can't create. Segregation supplanted slavery. Integration, segregation. Now, integration gives way to disintegration, as binaries boast non-binary BS. Darwinism died when microscopes made out mini-cell machines, and fossil records and fossils record predators in mid-bite. Draggies don't bear children. They consume them. All is still, born of woman, seeded by man. Trannies are castrate, incels eunuchs. Nothing plus nothing still equals nothing. But nothing plus God equals everything.